The sanctity of human life is under assault. Find out how and what you can do about it in this edition of Life Matters with Brian Johnston, Western Regional Director of the National Right to Life Committee. He has served in many capacities while advocating for innocent lives, as California Commissioner on Aging, as Chairman of the California Pro-Life Council, on the board of the National Legal Center for the Medically Dependent and Disabled. And now here's our host, Brian Johnston.
Well, welcome back to Life Matters. We're your radio show and a podcast dedicated to helping you understand and get a grip on what the right to life is really all about. Because the right to life is a significant statement. It's actually a statement that we borrow from our founding documents, a self-evident truth that there is a right to life that's given to you by your Creator. The government didn't give it to you. But the government does have a duty, and that's to protect your right to be alive. The government has a very specific responsibility. And so the right to life is actually a statement of political philosophy, believe it or not. But it's not a difficult idea to understand. It's an important predicate for the rest of our laws, because without a right to be alive, your right to be secure in your person, paper, and property, or to keep and bear arms, well, those are secondary. That's not as important as being alive. And so this predicate is important. It's essential to a free society. It's your life that has value more than anything else that you might own. It's your life. And that's at stake right now. That idea is under attack. So the purpose of Life Matters is to equip you for this battle of ideas. It's a very real battle. As I've mentioned last time, if you're a regular listener, you know that we are going through an extraordinary moment in history right now. The president gets it, and he addressed it in his State of the Union message. We're also seeing, though, in other states, things are happening. It's extraordinary. Do you know that in the year 2002, in the United States Senate, by unanimous consent, the Born Alive Infant Protection Act was passed? Unanimously, every Democrat voted for that if a child was born alive in the course of an abortion, that child's life needed to be protected. And there's many people that I have met, and you're going to meet later in this program, that actually have survived after being aborted alive. Because late-term abortions are happening. Late-term abortions have been happening under Roe. The reality of what Roe versus Wade is not told to you by the pop media. They don't explain the real implications of Roe. Roe has allowed abortion on demand, and yes, even in late term. You're going to hear from a couple of those late-term aborted babies that grew up. But the reason we're talking now about the importance of this issue is as I record this, February 2019, the United States Senate has voted again. But this time, dramatically different results, because 44 Democrats voted for unlimited abortion, and not only that, if the child should survive the abortion, for that child to be killed, literally infanticide. It's beyond comprehension. It's important that you understand this and the real agenda of the abortion movement and lobby, where they're really going and what their motive is. You're going to hear in a moment from the leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, as he addresses this startling vote. You have to know this. The current Democrat Party is not the party that you might have thought. It's not the party of JFK or Harry Truman. This is a radical party that is committed to unlimited abortion, and nothing could be clearer than to see what they are doing now to your nation. Senator McConnell.
We're no longer dealing with a normal, traditional Democratic Party. We're looking at a party that has been dragged so far to the left, it would have been unrecognizable to folks just a few years ago. In 1996, Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan condemned partial birth abortion by comparing it to infanticide. That was a distinguished, mainstream Democratic senator from New York about 20 years ago. And today, Today, 94% of Senate Democrats could not even vote to protect babies after they're born. And the only explanations they could offer were bizarre euphemisms and vague references to issues that have no bearing once a child has already been born alive. So it was a sorry display, Madam President. But I can say this fight isn't over. Republicans will not let this stunning extremism from our Democratic colleagues be the last word on this subject.
So that was Senate Leader Mitch McConnell talking about the vote on the Infant Protection Act, the Born Alive Infant Protection Act. This is an extraordinary moment where the abortion lobby is now going full steam. You need to know that the reason we do this program is to equip you. And even though we're talking about the news of the day right now, news items, we don't usually focus on news items. We usually take an in-depth dive on a particular aspect of the right to life issue, specifically so that you're equipped to address it. This is really a program about you. You have a life, you're alive, you have and enjoy the right to life. But the right to life is being denied to others in your society, and if you're silent about that, you don't get it. You don't understand the nature of this battle. So we want you to understand this battle and be equipped to address it. This battle is raging now.
If you have questions or comments for Life Matters, call 800-924-2490. Give us your name and the town you're calling from and a quick question or comment. You're listening to Life Matters.
Life Film Fest is the creative outreach in Hollywood that's changing Hollywood and the culture. There's many films you've already seen that actually had their start at Life Fest in Hollywood, their premiere. But more than that, we work with people throughout the industry who want to creatively bring the message of life. Not just hit you over the head with it or preach to you about it, but creatively impact the culture so that hearts and minds of our fellow citizens understand the depth and the breadth and the warp and the woof of what the right to life really is. Be part of Life Fest Film Festival and make a difference.
Every life does matter. Every life is significant. Find out about the exciting cultural change impacting Hollywood. Go to lifefilmfest.com. And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. So it is a bit inadvertent. We are, in fact, focusing on one issue right now, and it's late-term abortion. It's practice, it's being done, and now the Democrat Party, and specifically the radical abortionists within the party, are pushing that party to embrace even post-term abortion. That's right, killing a child after they are born. They are revealing their real motives. And if you are silent about this, so again, we're not having this program, and the debate isn't out there just to entertain you or distract you. It's to equip you to get involved. Some of you know that I've been involved in this debate for a long time, and specifically my emphasis has been on the other end of the spectrum. That's right, the euthanasia debate. Years ago, I wrote a book called Death as a Salesman. What's wrong with assisted suicide? And in that, I give some historical depth. And on page 110, if you happen to have a copy of it, I talk about the fact that in 1933, the Nazis legalized killing for the incurable, and they did so to end pain. I literally copied off the front page of the New York Times from October 8th, 1933, the article, and that's what it says. Nazis plan to kill incurables to end pain. German religious groups oppose the move. The reason I bring that up now is that we live in just such a moment. What happened in Germany at that time was known as the T4 program, the Tiergartenfeuer. It was a program that was designed to kill incurables, those with disabilities, basically those who were using up resources, those who were quote-unquote suffering and in pain. And they used emotional arguments, very practical and emotional arguments. However, the reason I mention it now, in those cities where religious leaders spoke from the pulpit against the evil of killing the vulnerable. In those places where there was a couple of Lutheran pastors who spoke eloquently, and also one in particular Catholic bishop, in those communities, they stopped. In other words, the Nazis were intimidated. You should also know this, even though you live in a one-party state, if you're in California, Nazi Germany actually had other political parties that were in disagreement with the Nazis. The problems they had came from their silence. They had been cowed into silence. And so as we talk about these issues now, and we see just how extreme the abortion lobby has gotten and the political maneuverings have gotten, we want to encourage you to not just watch. We want to encourage you to speak up, to direct yourself and your attention to this issue. I literally did an interview today with the Sacramento Bee, and I had to remind the reporter about this story. And I also was bold enough to say, I'm not sure McClatchy Papers want to even cover this story. And she was silent. So you're looking at a situation, they get away with what they want because of the silence and the misrepresentation. You have a duty. Once you know, you need to speak up wherever you are, whatever your position is. Again, the president has done this. This is an issue that has come up, and you're going to hear in just a moment from a black pastor in the state of Virginia. The reason we're bringing up his example, and he spoke just last week, again, this is in February of 2019. He spoke at a gathering at the Virginia Capitol. As you know, the Democrat Party, they're upset with the governor of Virginia because he had, in apparently college, done something in blackface and did some kind of a skit of racial overtones. And the Democrat Party is very, very upset. They are silent, however, about his open embrace of infanticide and promotion of it. The Democrat Party is silent. The media is not criticizing him for that. This black pastor, however, again, I underscore a black pastor, was eloquent in the need to call things what they are and to speak what's true. What he's doing is something that you and I need to do. Please listen carefully, because you are living in this same moment in history. You too must speak.
The mask is off. The hypocrisy has been revealed. And now we know who they really are. Anybody who is prepared to kill a child at the moment that that child is about to grasp for breath in the open air, anybody who is prepared to allow a child to die after that child has been born alive in order to fulfill the plans and purposes of the abortion industry does not deserve to be called a pediatrician. In fact, you don't deserve to be called a governor either. We are going to fight to make sure that this Commonwealth and our country is everything God intended it to be. One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, born and unborn. God bless you.
Well, that was a black pastor speaking in the state of Virginia, addressing what's really going on. The pop media, the major media, the dominant media culture wants to ignore the radical position of the abortion mentality. They do. They want to cover it up. As you know, they have spent years hiding, dissembling, misrepresenting what Roe v. Wade actually allows. When we come back, you're going to hear testimony from late-term abortion survivors testifying before Congress. These are little girls who had been killed by their mothers. And the doctor then wanted to ensure they would die. They were thrown into a bloody bucket, but they survived. You were their age once. You need to speak up too. We'll be right back after this.
You're listening to Life Matters.
Well, hi. I just wanted to thank you for joining me. You know, I have good friends, children, young adults, and adults that have Down syndrome. And they are so loved. Their parents love them so much because they're the happiest people you'd ever want to know. I really love them. I'm going to tell you something, though, that's rather frightening. The government of France has now prohibited showing positive images of Down syndrome children and letting parents know how lovable they are. That's an actual law in France. Here in the U.S., 80% of Down syndrome kids are killed by abortion before they're born. In France, it's 96%. So we're not a whole lot better. If you'd like to help out, you can go to the National Down Syndrome Society, ndss.org, to help out. That's ndss.org. We really are in a battle of ideas, and lives really are at stake.
And now back to more Life Matters with Brian Johnston.
Welcome back to Life Matters. Again, we're your program on the right to life. It's a very specific thing. You know, a lot of people I know tell me that they're pro-life, and yet when I ask them, well, what exactly does that mean? And they're not quite sure. They like babies. They're uncomfortable with abortion. And that same person will say, I would never have an abortion or want anyone in my family to have an abortion. But who am I to deny that to someone else? And I have to tell you, they don't really understand this debate then. To them, it is about their feelings. Just like a lot of Christians you might know. You might know Christians who talk about their faith and how they walk with God. But really, when you get down to it, a lot of their theology is all feelings, how they feel. They want to feel a certain way. The right to life is not about feelings, and true Christianity is not just about feelings, my friend. And so, as a parallel, I want to let you know there's things that have to be done. And in the right to life, in particular, you have to speak up because it is about the nature of the law. Will the law protect those that cannot protect themselves? And that's the nature of society itself. Before 1973, the laws of every state viewed babies in the womb as human babies, viewed them as the most vulnerable of all human beings, deserving of protection. If you've listened to our program before, do go back. If you haven't, there's a special podcast regarding the laws before Roe and where they came from. They were designed to protect those babies first and their mothers. And now that's all been thrown by the wayside. And the idea of protecting a vulnerable child is gone. And if you're silent, if you don't understand the loss of the right to life as a premise for your laws, then you don't understand what's happening. So we're going to hear now from a good friend of my family. Melissa Ohden has been speaking about her experience since she found out. She didn't know till she was in her late teens. She didn't find out that she herself had been aborted and abandoned by her mother. And thankfully, there was a nurse that fought for her life and got her out of that bucket of blood, and that girl survived. So you're going to hear Melissa Ohden talking about the implications of late-term abortion, but I want you to understand something. This was under Roe versus Wade. This was under the current regimen of the abortion industry. If you've seen the movie Gosnell, that was under Roe versus Wade. So when the LA Times, CBS, NBC, PBS, the Sacramento Bee, and any other places you get your media, when they tell you, well, Roe versus Wade is just about the first trimester. No, it's not. Roe versus Wade overturned the laws of every state and basically said they could not protect that child. And one of the reasons feminists, too, if you want to go back in our podcast, listen to the program on Justice Ginsburg, and you'll understand that feminists also don't like Roe v. Wade, because what it did is it turned doctors into killers. It isn't even the woman who makes the final decision. When you carefully read Roe v. Wade and its companion decision, Doe v. Bolton, it's the physician who makes the decision, and the woman's emotions in his perspective. So if he decides having this baby might affect her emotions, that's defined as the health of the mother in the decision itself of Doe v. Bolton. So even late term, and you're going to hear now from Melissa Ohden, and Melissa testified before Congress about her own near-death experience and her own life and the significance of late-term abortion.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, Mr. Chairman and Representatives. 327,653. This is the number of abortions that Planned Parenthood's 2014 fiscal report lists as being completed that year. Based on these numbers, 897 children will lose their lives to an abortion completed by Planned Parenthood each and every day. Why do I find this horrific? Because I actually have a lot in common with them. I was meant to be one of them. I should have been just another statistic, but by the grace of God, I am more than a statistic. I come here to you today as a wife, a mother, a daughter, a sister, a master's level prepared social worker, and yes, as an abortion survivor. From a botched abortion to the dreaded complication, a child who lives, I've been called just about everything that you can imagine. But if you want to turn your attention up to the screen, as you can see in my medical records from 1977, kind of right there in the middle, saline infusion for an abortion was done, but was unsuccessful. And in other times throughout my medical records, you will read statements like, the complication of my birth mother's pregnancy was a saline infusion abortion. You could certainly say that saline infusion complicated the pregnancy. It has taken years to unravel the secrets surrounding my survival, to have contact with my biological family, and even medical professionals that cared for me. And although there are still unanswered questions, what I do know is that my life was intended to be ended by that abortion. And even after I survived, my life was in jeopardy. You wouldn't know it by looking at me today, but in August of 1977, I also survived a saline infusion abortion. And as Gianna shared, that saline infusion abortion involves injecting a toxic salt solution into the amniotic fluid surrounding the preborn child. The intent of that toxic salt solution is to scald the child to death from the outside in. For days, I soaked in that toxic salt solution, and on the 5th day of the procedure, my biological mother, who was a 19-year-old college student, delivered me after her labor was induced. I should have been delivered dead that day as a successful abortion. In 2013, I learned through contact with my biological mother's family that not only was this abortion forced upon her against her will at the age of 19, but also that it was my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, a nurse, who delivered me in this final step of the abortion procedure at St. Luke's Hospital in Sioux City, Iowa. Unfortunately, I also learned that when my grandmother realized that the abortion had not succeeded in ending my life, she demanded that I be left to die. I may never know how exactly 2 nurses who were on staff that day found out about me, but what I do know is that their willingness to fight for medical care to be provided to me ultimately sustained my life. And I know where children like me were left to die at St. Luke's Hospital. I met a nurse there who delivered a child much like me in 1976. She delivered a little boy after a failed saline infusion abortion. But she followed her superior's orders, and she placed him there in a utility closet in a bucket of formaldehyde to be picked up later as medical waste after he was left there to die alone. A bucket of formaldehyde in a utility closet was meant to be my fate after I survived that abortion attempt. I weighed a little less than 3 pounds when I survived. I suffered from jaundice, severe respiratory problems, and seizures for an extended period of time. And one of the first notations in my medical records by a doctor after I survived is that I looked like I was about 31 weeks gestational age when I was delivered. Despite the miracle of my survival, the doctor's prognosis for my life was very poor initially. My adoptive parents were told that I would suffer from multiple disabilities throughout my life. Yet here I am today, perfectly healthy. Yet I know it isn't just how abortion ends the life of children like me that isn't talked about in today's world. It's also not discussed what happens to children like me who live. I can tell you we are your friend, your neighbor, your coworker, and you would likely never guess by passing us on the street that we survived what we did. In my work as the founder of the Abortion Survivors Network, I have had contact with 203 of these other survivors. Letters from some of those survivors have been submitted to this committee. I'm here today to share my story to not only highlight the horror of abortion taking place at Planned Parenthood, but to give a voice to other survivors like me, and most importantly, to give a name, a face, and a voice to the hundreds of thousands of children who will have their lives ended by Planned Parenthood this year alone. As you consider the horrors of what happens at Planned Parenthood each day, I would urge you to remember my story and Gianna's too. We may not have survived abortions at Planned Parenthood, but the expectation for our lives to be ended by abortion are the very same as those who do lose their lives there. And I have long believed that if my birth mother's abortion would have taken place at a Planned Parenthood, I would not be here today. Completing over 300,000 abortions a year provides them with the experience to make sure that failures like me don't exist. As a fellow American and as a fellow human being, I deserve the same right to life, the same equal protection under the law as each and every one of you. Yet we live in a time where not only do such protections not exist, but my own tax dollars and yours go to fund an organization that has perfected the very thing that was meant to end my life. And this must end.
So you just heard part of the testimony of Melissa Ohden, who survived a late-term abortion. You didn't get to hear from Gianna Jessen, another extraordinary woman. But you need to know late-term abortion is happening. Are you speaking out against it? Are you standing up for innocent human life? And again, it isn't because you feel that way. These are objective facts. It isn't because your religion thinks that. This is objectively a nation killing its own children. These are human babies. We need you to speak up. And the purpose of this program is to help you and others like you who may not even tune in, but they may hear from you. And when you have an answer for them, when you speak to someone else from your church or someone else that you know about the dire situation in our nation that we're killing children that have been born now. If you don't speak for them, who will? So please consider supporting Life Matters. Go to www.lifematters.life, and where it says to help, please consider pledging to our program. We're conducting this pledge drive so that we can expand this work to help you and all the folks like you who have convictions but don't quite know what to do with them. We want to equip you with the facts of life. Please feel free to get involved and to speak up and to get equipped to fight for life.
If you have questions or comments for Life Matters, call 800-924-2490. Give us your name and the town you're calling from and a quick question or comment. To subscribe to the Life Matters podcast, go to lifematters.life, where you will find everything you need to know to share life, culture, and the battle of ideas with everyone you care about. This is a production of the California Pro-Life Council, the state affiliate of National Right to Life. Wherever you are in the nation, you can find out more at National Right to Life. You can find vital pro-life information and also find the access to your state and local Right to Life affiliate. Get informed and get involved.